This is diabolical from Man United.
And the fact morale at Old Trafford amongst the staff has never been so low.
If we didn't score that last gasp penalty against Burnley, which is our only win this season in all competitions, and if we lose to Chelsea at the weekend, which I expect us to do so, we will be in the relegation zone.
I think he's trapped in that Sporting Lisbon success. This is how I'm going to implement this here.
I don't see the system as you guys see the system, so I will try to do my job.
I don't understand what you're watching at times from a mighty club like Manchester United. It's shocking.
He's the worst start in the league since 1992-93 season. He hasn't won 2 games in a row yet.
To some extent, the manager has to take a huge amount of responsibility for sitting in a place where you've made things worse.
Sometimes we are a little bit naive in the approach that we have, but I saw some games that sometimes we can run faster, but they try.
Factually, the worst manager that Manchester United have had.
Amorim sticking to his style at all costs has made United even worse.
But Old Trafford is fast becoming the theatre of broken dreams.
Well, the data suggests that they're going to win the title this year.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah, the numbers generally are good. We saw yesterday, despite sitting 14th, said the Times, in the Premier League, United have registered the most touches in the opposition's penalty area, the most expected goals, the most shots this season, and recorded the best shots, different shots taken minus shots faced.
Okay.
So get the open top bus ready. So that's the stats. But I mean, we read overnight. I mean, Paul Scholes and Wayne Rooney and others lining up to say they don't quite know what's going on.
No.
Alex Crook is fresh from Inside Devils, the podcast that we bring you and YouTube show that we bring you here on talkSPORT around Manchester United. I bet it was a bundle of laughs today, wasn't it?
Right laugh.
Well, it's one of those shows where we actually didn't need a script because it was basically just a sort of 45-minute therapy session. And I've got to say, it did get a bit feisty because there was a split down there as to what happens next at Manchester United. Flex, who was the host, I think he's adamant now that Ruben Amorim has served his time, has to go. Ryan Scott Douglas, Manchester United fan, big stat man actually, so maybe this is what he's basing his opinion on. He is very much the belief that he needs more time. I'm probably somewhere in between, and I pushed Ruben Amorim quite hard after the game at the Etihad on Sunday on his system, on the fact that clearly it's not bringing the best out of Bruno Fernandes, but he's not for turning. He insists the system is not the problem, that it will come good, and maybe those stats back him up. 31 games he's had in the Premier League, 8 wins in the Premier League, not won back-to-back games, as that caller we heard in the package suggested. And at the moment, it's relegation form. They're 1 point above the relegation zone. They've got Chelsea at home on Saturday, which looks a very difficult game to make a case for United winning. Then they go to Brentford, who've caught me by surprise. I think they look a much better team than I expected with all the upheaval they've had this summer. And then Sunderland at home. And I think it's difficult to make a case for United beating Sunderland at the moment. Well organised, well coached. 2 things that Manchester United don't appear to be. And I don't think we're too far away now from the players losing belief in the manager. There's been some suggestions out on the back pages in 1 or 2 papers today, and I think you can see by the body language, Bruno Fernandes not tracking his man for the first goal. I'm not sure they have faith in this system that results are going to turn.
Paul Scholes' main issue seemed to be with the midfield and them not having the legs in midfield and the quality elsewhere. And we saw what City did to sort of negate them the other day. You're right. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about sort of neutering Bruno as an attacking force by playing him more as an 8 than the 10, etc., etc. It's not just about the system. It's kind of where he's fitting the personnel around it.
Yeah, and the players that he's picking. I mean, I think the goalkeeping situation has been a debacle because I think we all know that Altay Bayindir isn't good enough to be a Manchester United or even a Premier League number 1. I don't know why they decided to hang their hat on him at the start of the season. That obviously affected Andre Onana's confidence. You saw that in the game against Grimsby in the Cup when he chucked 2 in the back of his own net, and ultimately his United career ended there. I think Sonny Lamans probably should have gone straight into the team at the weekend. Patrick Dorgu is a player they've signed purely, it seems, because he fits this system that Amorim wants to play. Well, he's not good enough. You know, he got himself in some brilliant crossing positions, regularly hit the first man. That was when he wasn't finding himself in an offside position. And if you asked any United fan, and probably even Amorim himself, at the end of last season, who have been the 2 best players for United, Bruno Fernandes and Amad Diallo would have been the answer. Well, both of those are being used wrongly. I mean, Amad looks totally lost to me. Is he a left wing back? Is he a right wing back? Is he a winger, which I think is where he really wants to play? Or is he a number 10? We've spoken about Bruno. So it's not just the system. It's the personnel changes as well. And I was speaking to a coach at another club yesterday, and he was saying, look at the stats. And I don't know if you got this statistic. but pretty much every game, he changes one of the centre-backs after 70 minutes. Now, if you're playing in a back three, that's the one position you don't really need to tinker with because you're not using as much energy. So what is that substitution all about? And the Kobbie Mainoo...
Well, he's got to bring his striker on, Harry Maguire.
You joke, but I think Harry Maguire's coming on in games more because of what he can do in the opposition penalty area.
Because they're chasing
than
games.
what he can do in his own. And the Kobbie Mainoo situation is infuriating.
Yeah, sad.
Because you go back to the 2024 FA Cup final, he scores in that game, he runs the midfield against Manchester City, United defy the odds and they win the FA Cup, it keeps Erik ten Hag in a job. A few weeks later, he comes in and solves that number 6 issue that England had at the European Championships. He plays in the European Championship final. He's been criminally underused by Ruben Amorim, and I speak to people close to Kobbie Mainoo, and they say to me, he doesn't fancy him. Kobbie believes the manager doesn't have any faith in his ability. And I think that's a real dereliction of duty, a player who's come through the academy. And I heard a caller on, I'm ranting here, but I heard a caller on Drive last night talking about the system. If Ryan Giggs was a Manchester United player now, he'd struggle to get in the team.
This is a good
because he doesn't fit the system.
He don't fancy Højlund, who scored at the weekend. I mean, he didn't have a great season last year. He doesn't fancy Garnacho, who played great, I thought, for Chelsea at the weekend. Doesn't fancy Rashford.
Apart from the last 30 seconds when he fell asleep.
But it's a slightly dangerous business when you talk about those players and you look at the DNA and the history of Manchester United. It's built on wide players. We're not really playing with wide players at the moment. It's built on players coming through the academy. That's what Manchester United fans want to see. And because the board have gone all in on this manager, and if they do have to fire him, I don't have a clue where they start from scratch. But they've allowed him to sell Garnacho, to loan out Rashford. Now, obviously, there's been an attitude issue with both those players, and it would be two-faced of me to say otherwise. But you're allowing him, with Kobbie Mainoo as well, to get rid of the young players that United fans want to see the team built around. If you then sack that manager and you've already offloaded all those young players, will they live to regret that?
There's this story today, there's a presidential race at Benfica, and one of the people in the running, because he played there when he was younger, he would love to take him back to the club. I think that's the ticket he's working. But there's no way Ruben Amorim walks. When do coaches ever walk? When they're going to get a massive payoff like that? So it's a decision Manchester United will have to make, but there would be an opportunity for him to walk into a plum job potentially. And I don't know, well, that would go down with the Sporting fans. So.
Well, no, absolutely, with the rivalry between those two. But I think also there was a suggestion from sources close to Benfica last night. Actually, Rui Costa, former Portuguese international, he is more likely to become the new president than the guy you're talking about. So maybe even that won't be an escape route. But you're right, managers don't walk away from contracts. But speaking to players, they tell me that when your manager comes out, as he did after that Grimsby game, and basically said, well, maybe I'll have to walk away, maybe I can't solve this, that's not going to help the issues inside the dressing room either.
But when he got the job, he said he didn't want it yet. Well, now he didn't want half the players he had. And now he doesn't seem to want the job he's got. When has he ever wanted this job?
There's a lot of evidence, I think, at the moment to suggest this is a manager who has found himself out of his depth.
Yeah.
I think his body language, the fact he won't change the system, as you say, that the stuff he said along the way. And on one hand, you have to praise the openness in press conferences because that's what we all want as journalists. We want straight answers. We want managers who are going to give us headlines, give us sound bites. But I think he's been too honest along the way. And what I think needs to happen now is that somebody on the hierarchy needs to pull him into the office. Hopefully this already happened on Monday morning after Derby and say, look, we have faith in you.
Yeah.
You're our guy. But ultimately, you've won 8 out of 31 Premier League games. So you need to find a way to change that. And if that means sacrificing your principles and changing the system, you need to do that because otherwise, we, the board, are going to have a big decision to make in the not-too-distant future.
And also, Andy's point, he's been saying, stop talking, mate. It's just, I know you're right. People want that, and it's great. It's great for quotes for us. It's brilliant for talkSPORT. But I don't think it's doing him any favours. It's just he's putting too much.
And players will pick up on it. Players will use that as a sort of weapon against the manager, particularly those who aren't playing.
Thank you, Alex. It's available tonight, isn't it, Inside Devils?
It is, and it should be a good watch.
Yeah, it's our therapy session for Manchester United fans. If you need one of those on wherever you watch YouTube tonight and watch the guys in action. Thank you very much.
Paul Hawksbee and Andy Jacobs, Monday to Friday afternoons, 1 till 4. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.